What if I told you that the reason you've never fit in isn't because something is wrong with you, but because you were never designed for the life everyone else is living? Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered about certain types of people will permanently change how you see your entire existence. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what happens when who you truly are is something the world doesn't have a category for? What happens when your very nature makes ordinary life feel like a prison? And nowhere is this more painfully true than in the life of an unawakened empath. You see, most people think empaths are just sensitive people who cry at movies and feel too much. But Jung's research uncovered something far more radical and, frankly, far more extraordinary. Here's what nobody has ever told you about why your life feels so different from everyone else's. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never apologize for who you are again. According to Carl Jung, every individual is born with what he called a psychological blueprint, an innate configuration of the psyche that determines how they perceive and interact with reality. Most people share a similar blueprint. They navigate the world through surface-level perception, conventional ambition, predictable emotional responses. But empaths, Jung discovered, are operating from an entirely different architecture. And that architecture was never meant to fit inside an ordinary life. Jung observed that empaths possess what he termed an expanded field of consciousness. They don't just perceive the visible world. They register undercurrents, tensions, unspoken truths that most people are neurologically incapable of detecting. This isn't imagination. This isn't anxiety. It's what Jung called a direct connection to the collective unconscious, the vast psychic reservoir that connects all human experience. But here's where it gets fascinating, and this is the part that changes everything. Carl Jung said that individuals with access to the collective unconscious carry a burden that ordinary consciousness cannot comprehend. They feel what isn't theirs. They know things they shouldn't know. They sense shifts before they happen, and because the world has no framework for this, they spend years, sometimes decades, believing they're broken. They get told they're too sensitive. They get told they overthink. They get told to toughen up, to stop taking things personally, to just be normal. And so the empath does something devastating. They try to shrink themselves into a life that was never built for them. And that, according to Jung, is the beginning of their deepest suffering. Listen carefully to what comes next, because this is where your entire story starts to make sense. Carl Jung discovered that when someone with an expanded consciousness tries to live a contracted life, the psyche rebels. It doesn't just protest, it creates what Jung called a neurosis of inauthenticity, a deep psychological friction between who you are and who you're pretending to be. That friction manifests as chronic exhaustion, unexplained anxiety, a persistent feeling that something is missing even when everything looks fine on the surface. The empath sitting in the corporate meeting, smiling, performing, dying inside. The empath in the relationship that looks perfect, but feels hollow. The empath surrounded by friends yet profoundly, inexplicably alone. This isn't depression, it's what Jung termed the call of the self, the psyche demanding that you stop living someone else's life and start living your own. And here's what Jung understood that most people never will. The empath's suffering isn't caused by the world being too harsh. It's caused by the empath living too small. Every time you dim your perception to make others comfortable, you betray your own psychic design. Every time you pretend not to see what you clearly see, you create what Jung called an internal split, a war between your authentic self and the version of you the world finds acceptable. But here's where the psychology gets absolutely extraordinary, and this is the moment everything turns. According to Carl Jung's research on individuation, there comes a point in certain individuals' lives when the false self can no longer hold, the mask cracks, the performance collapses, and what emerges isn't breakdown, it's breakthrough. Jung called this the dark night of the soul, a psychological crisis that appears destructive, but is actually the psyche's most aggressive act of self-correction. The empath who hits this point isn't falling apart. They're being dismantled by their own unconscious so that something more authentic can be assembled in its place. And what gets assembled is something the world has never seen before in that person. Carl Jung observed that empaths who survive this crisis don't just recover. They transform into what he called individuals of extraordinary psychological depth. They stop apologizing for their sensitivity and start recognizing it as their most sophisticated instrument. They stop trying to fit into systems that were never designed for minds like theirs. They stop measuring their worth by conventional standards that were created by and for people who experience a fraction of what they feel. But here's the part that will send chills through everything you thought you knew about yourself. According to Carl Jung, empaths are not ordinary people with an extra layer of emotion. They are what he described as psychologically advanced individuals whose nervous systems are calibrated for a depth of experience that most humans never access. The ordinary life, the predictable career, the surface-level relationships, the unexamined routines, these were never your path. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because your psychic architecture literally cannot sustain itself on that level of existence. You need depth the way other people need air. You need authenticity the way others need comfort. You need meaningful connection the way others need casual companionship. And when you don't get these things, you don't just feel dissatisfied, you begin to psychologically deteriorate. Jung understood this completely. And here's what he discovered about what happens when the empath finally stops pretending. Carl Jung said that the moment someone accepts their true nature, regardless of how inconvenient or incomprehensible it is to others, they unlock what he called the self-archetype, the deepest and most powerful center of the psyche. For the empath, this acceptance is nothing short of revolutionary. The noise quiets, the confusion clears, the exhaustion that came from performing normalcy begins to evaporate. They stop asking, "Why am I like this?" and start asking, "What is this for?" And when that question gets answered, when the empath finally understands that their sensitivity isn't a flaw but a function, everything realigns. They stop seeking ordinary happiness and discover what Jung called meaning. Something far deeper, far more sustaining, and far more rare. They find work that engages their depth instead of insulting it. They build relationships that honor their perception instead of punishing it. They create lives that look nothing like what society prescribed, but feel like home for the first time. Carl Jung discovered that the empath's path was never meant to be ordinary because ordinary is a category built for a type of consciousness they don't possess. Their path is what he called the way of individuation, the most demanding and most rewarding journey in all of human psychology. It requires them to abandon every borrowed expectation, every inherited definition of success, every external template for how life should look. But what they gain in return is something most people will spend their entire lives searching for and never find. According to Carl Jung, the individuated empath achieves what he termed wholeness, a state where sensitivity and strength coexist, where depth and clarity operate together, where the person is no longer at war with their own nature, but fully, unapologetically living from it. Your life was never meant to be ordinary, not because you're above ordinary, but because your psyche was built for a journey that ordinary cannot contain. And the moment you stop forcing yourself into a container that was never shaped for you, is the moment your real life finally begins. Jung understood this, and now so do you.